Attention all data enthusiasts. Stop just visualizing your raw data and start transforming it into actionable insights with Power BI. This video is your gateway to the world of data revolution, because here's where we are going to decode the fundamentals of BI, unravel the mysteries of Power BI's components, and harness the full potential of DAX. So whether you are a newbie eager to explore the basics of business intelligence and data visualization, or a seasoned analyst ready to dive deep into Power BI's advanced features, this video is just perfect for you. Get ready to supercharge your data analysis skills and unlock a world of possibilities with Power BI.
Now let us try and understand what is Power BI in little more detail. Let's try and understand Power BI as in what all can it do, what it is, and how does one define it. So when you take a look at the definition, Power BI is a tool which basically lets you control quite a few things, right? Be it from connection to collaboration, Power BI is the most powerful, secure, and flexible end-to-end analytics platform for your data. When you say an end-to-end platform, right from data consumption or data sourcing to the end process where you generate reports out of it, right? Power BI takes care of quite a lot of things. So when we are talking about data visualization tools, the primary function here is to take in your raw data and generate visualizations out of it, which can convey some of the missions or messages very effectively. And that is what Power BI does for you. It gives you end-to-end solution to quite a lot of problems that you may have in your hand. Okay. And that is what Power BI is in a nutshell. Let's try and understand Power BI a little more with the features that it offers. To start with, Power BI offers apt visualizations. So the number of options when it comes to visualizing your data are plenty. They are numerous, and you can actually go ahead and customize your visualizations and do a lot of things with it. As we get into the demo part, we'll be discussing these bits in a lot more detail, and all of a sudden these concepts like depth, automatic functions, connecting to data, apt visualizations will start making a lot more sense to you. But for now, let's try and understand what the definition or what do these pointers stand for. So when you say apt visualizations, the aim here is to generate visualizations that convey detailed or a lot more information for you with ease. You can get into the depth of concepts. So this is where your drill down features come into picture. How do you get into depth of information? Let's assume that there's a business problem for which you're reporting certain data and presenting it in the form of visuals. And that certain data is nothing but the sales on yearly basis. So what we realized was, let's assume that I quoted data for 4 years where I showed the profits or sales, whatever it is, right? Let's assume sales for last 3 to 4 years. Now, what we realized was this year there was a sudden spike, or there was a high increase in the sales that we did. So if I have to figure out, let's assume something like I want to understand in which part of the year did I get more sales. So I can actually go ahead and drill down and take a look at quarterly data for this year. I can compare it with quarterly data for previous years, and what that would tell me is, as in which quarter did we have more performance? Was it consistent? Was it a particular quarter that we got more information in? So when you say drill deeper or get into the depths of information, that is what you do here. Then you have something called as automatic functions. Now what are automatic functions? Automatic functions are nothing but the ease with which you can actually go ahead and create visualizations where Power BI supports you by giving you ample and good suggestions for your data. If you are not certain as in for what visualization should I opt for when I choose this particular data, do not worry about it. All you have to do is put that data, and if that can be visualized, Power BI by default will suggest certain visualizations for you. Again, something that we'll be seeing as we perform demo and we get into the practical part of things for this course. The next point is connection to data. There are very less data sources out there in the market to which a tool like Power BI cannot connect to. So when you talk about Power BI, I don't think I've seen any tool yet or known any tool yet that you cannot import your data from into Power BI. Again, the different connection sources is something that we'll discuss as we move further. So this is what Power BI is in a nutshell, be it from connection to collaboration. It is an end-to-end analytics tool for your data. Okay. And apart from that, it provides features like it gives you up visualizations, in-depth drilling and understanding of your data. It lets you basically go ahead and use automatic functions, something that you can use to connect or basically you can use to create more better visualizations, and you can also connect to different data sources, making it easily available for different requirements. So when you talk about the Power BI architecture, we are not going to get into the complications of how the architecture works in detail, but there are 3 important pointers that you need to understand, and you can see those pointers at the right bottom corner of this slide, where we've talked about data integration, processing, and presentation of information. What that means is, when you talk about any data, the first step is to get your data from different sources. The next step is, once you have that data, you integrate it, you transform it into more edible data. And once the data is edible, you just present it in a better manner. So people who work in ETL can relate to this, right? Extract, transform, and load. That is what we do. So basically, when you talk about Power BI, it works no differently, right? One, as I've mentioned, there are very few data sources to which Power BI cannot connect to. So you'd be taking in data from different data sources, right? And then you would move it to Power BI services, which is their online platform. Now, once it is there in Power BI services, you can then through the gateway move it to the servers. It can be your private server or Power BI server. And if and when required, you can use tools like Power BI Desktop, okay, which can be used to basically go ahead and create visualizations using Power BI, or basically using this tool, you can create visualizations. So what are the sub tools that you can use? This is something we'll see as we move further. But this is how the architecture of Power BI works. I hope that is clear to you people. Let us now go ahead and understand the different components of Power BI. So when you talk about the different components of Power BI, we have quite a few components that Power BI offers to us. So to name a few, you have your Power Query, you have your Power View, you have your Power BI Q&A, Power Pivot. Then you have other features as well, right? Be it your mobile features, be it your desktop features, right? There are plenty of these out there in the market. Let's try and understand them one by one. Okay. So first and foremost, let's talk about Power Query. Now, Power Query is one of the important components of Power BI that can be included in your Excel, or it can also be used as a component of Power BI Desktop. Now, using Power Query, what you can do is you can basically delete your data from numerous data sources, or even extract your data from a wide range of different databases, be it your Oracle, SQL Server, be it MySQL, be it other databases as well, or different sources as well. What you can also do here is you can fetch data from records. Now, these records can be like your text files, CSVs, and even Excel files, right? So when you talk about Power BI, it gives you a feature of working with data, be it dealing with different data sources, be it deleting or fetching data. All these things can be done by using your Power BI query or Power Query. What Power BI also does is it gives you a strong GUI, that is graphical user interface, so that you can actually go ahead and transform a lot of your data and use this data as you need. Now, when you talk about transforming, you might require data such as date and time, changes, adding columns, changing the types of your data and content, right? And many other different options that are there on your plate. Now, when you talk about Power Query, again, it is useful as it uses formula like your M formula language. Power Query M formula language is what we call, and it is more vigorous than a normal GUI. So that is what your Power Query lets you do. It lets you deal with GUI requirements as well and all the data processing that we discussed at the initial point of start. Now, let's try and understand the other components. I'm going to go through these components in random orders. So let's now discuss the Power Pivot, what it is and how does it function. So when you talk about Power Pivot again is a data modeling and calculation engine. It is used for modeling simple and complex data. In Power Pivot, you can set or create relationships between different tables and calculate values that can be viewed in Power Tables or pivot tables rather. Now, when you talk about it, what it does is it also gives you a lot of space where you can actually go ahead and create your designs. And another important thing is when you talk about Power Pivot, it uses DAX, that is data analysis expressions, something that we'll see to some extent as we move further. So it is a very strong concept when you talk about DAX, and it serves quite a lot of purposes in general. So we'll discuss that as we move further. The next point that we would be talking about now is your Power View. When you talk about Power View, again, it is a data visualization component, a basic one, a fundamental one though. And what it does is it is a component that lets you interact with the data and connect to different data sources that you have, just like you do in Power Query. But the other thing that it gives you here is you can retrieve the metadata that you have, okay? And it can be used for data analysis. Now, there are many blueprints for visualization in Power View lists, if you talk about it in general form. And with Power View, what you can also do is you can filter your data for every visualization component or for an entire report if you want to. You can add slicers to it, right? You can slice and dice your data. And when you talk about reports in Power View, these are interactive in nature and can highlight some important parts of the data or different components in Power View to interact with each other. Now, next you have on your plate is Power Map. Okay. So when you talk about Power Map is used to visualize geospatial data, which can be in 3D mode, right? So Power Map basically lets you deal with geographic data. Now, when you're talking about this data type, we are talking about data that is specific to a particular location, and you need separate kind of visualization for it. And when you talk about Power Map, it lets you get all this data in place and also let you render this data in 3D mode. So what that means is with Power Map, you can go ahead and attribute or assume one of the attributes and then actually go ahead and create different views, be it your heat maps and stuff like that. Okay. So when it comes to dealing with geographic data, you can always opt for something like a Power Map. Now, we've been going around and around talking about different visualizations and the ease with which you can actually go ahead and get your data. The important point here is we need to question the data that we have, right? Can we do that? When you have Power BI Q&A, you can definitely do that. It is nothing but a language motor. You can think of it as a language motor that basically lets you go through your data model and question it to get certain important answers. Okay. And when you talk about it, it helps you find solutions to quite important questions that are there, figure out certain hints related to the data, and then using which you can either create more visualizations or just understand the existing visualizations better. Apart from that, you have some tools that Power BI offers. Now, we've talked about the important components and all the 5 ones are covered, but then there are certain other parts to it, right? You have a Power BI desktop, a desktop related service or a software that you can install on your system. And once you do that, you can go ahead and create visualizations out of it. Then you have something called as Power BI website, to which you can go ahead and publish your reports and dashboards. And then you have Power BI mobile apps. Now, when you talk about mobile apps, these are important. One, you cannot make changes to your data, to your visualizations when on mobile. But let's assume that you're stuck somewhere and you need to take a look at the report that has been sent or a dashboard that has been shared. What do? If somebody shares it with you on your phone and you have Power BI, which has access to take a look at that particular dashboard or visual, you can do that using your Power BI mobile. So again, guys, there are other sub-parts, sub-components, but these are the core ones. I believe by now, the different components of Power BI are clear to you people. So what are the building blocks of Power BI? Now, this is another important concept, theoretical in nature, but very important when you talk about its practical applications, something that is going to help us carry out our demos for this course much better. So let's try and understand what are the building blocks of Power BI. Now, when you talk about Power BI, the major purpose of using Power BI is to generate effective visualizations. So when you talk about these effective visualizations, we are talking about some key concepts that concern visualizations. So what exactly is visualization? Let's try and understand that first. When you actually present your data in a visual form, say for example, you have certain set of information that can be represented by a pie chart or a bar graph. What it is, we'll understand these graphs and charts as we move further. But let's assume that you want to convey that information in that form. It would be easier for people to consume that information than the written information that we've discussed. And when you create a visual out of the information you have, we call it visualization. The other important point here is data sets. Now, to create visualizations, you'd be needing different data sets. Data sets can be in any form. We've already discussed different sources of data that Power BI supports, right? So understanding how the data looks like and how to get your data in is something that concerns your data sets bit here. Okay. And next, as we move further, we have some other bits that we can discuss and which are thoroughly or equally important, right? And those are your tiles, basically your reports and your dashboards. So let's try and understand them one by one. First in this list, we'll pick up what tiles are. So when you talk about tiles again is a flexible, movable visualization that you can pick up, you can put it in a report, you can put it in a dashboard, and that would convey a single set of information that concerns your requirement. And when you build on it and you create multiple such visualizations and tiles together, you put it in a report. Now, when you talk about a report is basically one or more pages of visualizations, graphics and texts that you can put together and convey a certain set of information. It is a little different than what a dashboard is. Whereas if you talk about dashboard in particular, it is nothing but basically conveying a lot of information on a single page. As we move further, we'll be classifying these two topics in detail. But let me quickly give you a quick overview of all these services again. So the first thing that you have on your plate is your data sets. Right? Data sets is nothing but a different data sources from where you'll get your data. Next to it is creating visualizations out of the data that you have, and a single visualization would be known as a tile. If I basically go ahead and create multiple tiles or visualizations using the same data source, then it is called as a report. And when I have multiple reports with me, I can pick important pointers from each report and put it on a single canvas where I try to build a story. It is called as a dashboard. So these are the components of Power BI, or the building blocks rather, not the components. These are the building blocks of Power BI. Let us now go ahead and discuss Power BI reports in a little more detail. When you talk about Power BI reports, now Power BI reports are nothing but a multi-perspective view or information into a particular data set, right? With visualizations that represent different findings and insights from that data set. So we are referring to a single data set, as I mentioned. A report may be a single visualization, or it could be multiple pages of different visualizations. So here your data set is single. Please note that. Okay. In Power BI, you can create your reports and you can edit the data that is there in your reports. But when you publish it as a dashboard is where you can interact with the data, but it is difficult to change your data once it is published in the form of a report. Let's try and understand what dashboards are first. So when you talk about dashboards are basically concepts where you try to build a particular story. If we go with the definition, it is a single page, also known as a canvas, that uses visualizations to tell a particular story. It is limited to one page, and a point note is that a good dashboard contains only the important elements of that story. Enough of reading the definition that is there on the screen, which has a grammatical error right now. Let me explain this concept to you more practically. Let's assume that you work for a particular company and you work for X team. Let's assume a marketing team. Now, you could be reporting data, your personal data or your team's data. There's a possibility of that. How does that work? Let's assume that there's a manager in the company who basically handles a marketing team, and there are like 15 marketing guys. So there could be a possibility that on monthly basis, every marketing guy reports the data to the manager. So there would be like 12 guys, 15 guys who report their data having 15 reports. And then this is what my monthly report or weekly report would look like. So there would be 15 reports with the manager. A manager would consolidate that report into one major report that he has, where he talks about the entire marketing team, which has important information about every report that you have on a surface level. There could be hundreds of such teams, or maybe 10-15 teams in the company that serve different purposes. Let's assume that all these 15 teams have managers who create 15 individual reports for their teams. Now, if I talk about a stakeholder might not be interested in taking a look at those individual reports. What he wants is he wants an insight as to what improved, what did not, and what we can do better. For that, what if we build a dashboard where we take in important pointers or the noticeable pointers that need to be noticed from each of these reports for individual teams and put it on a canvas where we can build a story out of it. Say, for example, just because there were a lot of YouTube videos that were published on a particular channel, we saw a lot of traffic being generated for sales leads, and this is where the increase in sales happened. So we are passing on the information and trying to build a story by connecting the dots from different reports. And when you pick up this important information and build a story, we do that on a single canvas, and that canvas here is called as a dashboard. So I hope what a dashboard is clear to you people. Let us now go ahead and understand how to install Power BI and understand what its interface is. Once we do that, we can come back and cover some of the other concepts that would help us go ahead and demonstrate all that we have looked into. So let's do that. So dear attendees, this is how the Power BI desktop looks like. We'll talk about it at stretch, but before that, let me show you how to install Power BI. So to do that, open your Google or any browser that you have with you. There you go. So let's just go ahead and look for Power BI installation. Okay, and if you select it, it would redirect you to some of the suggestions, and you can just come here and look for this first one, powerbi.microsoft.com. So when you click on this downloads panel here or suggestion in the link, so you can basically see that you can download different Power BI tools that you have on your platter. Do you want a Power BI Microsoft Desktop, Power BI Mobile, the ones that we discussed, right? On-premise servers and stuff. You should actually go ahead and download your Power BI Desktop version. So if you click on Open Microsoft Store, it would take you to that particular place. So again, this is basically redirecting you to Microsoft stack of products available in their Play Store or in their local store. Okay, so this is where you can actually go ahead and download your Power BI Desktop. You'd get an option of downloading here, but since I already have it downloaded on my system, it says launch. So if I click on launch, it would basically take me to the software that I've already installed. You can see the product is installed is what it says, because I have it on my system. You have all the information here and all the system requirements. I don't think there are any major system requirements. It's a very basic desktop tool. You see, these are the requirements it has. You need like 2 GB of memory, that is very low again. So you can download a Power BI version for that. Once you do that, guys, it's just click and launch kind of an action. So just continue clicking on it till it asks you to click on finish, and once you do that, you'll be having Power BI installed on your system. As simple as that. So make sure you do that. You download Power BI here. It is a free of cost tool when you use it on your desktop, and basically there are no premium features here. From a learner's perspective, this should be more than enough for you to go ahead and get started. So that is what Power BI desktop installation looks like. I'm not going to walk you through the installation process in detail. It's not complicated. Anybody can do it. And once you install, this is what you'd have on your plate. So this is how the interface of Power BI looks like. let's quickly walk through some of the important pointers that are there on our plate. And once we understand how the interface looks like or works, we would go back and cover some of the important concepts, and then we would get into a full-fledged demo as to how to do these things practically. So what exactly is this interface useful for? First and foremost, you have these panes here. When you click on file, you see it would show you the reports that you've created. Now I've created plenty of those here. You can save those. You can even click on get data to basically connect to different data sources. You can import and export your existing files. You can publish it to the Power BI services where you can have your reports created or your dashboards created rather. And you have other options as well. You can even click on get started to basically get information about Power BI. So let's not do that. Let's just go back for now. There's another option here, get data, you see. So this is where you can import data from different sources into your Power BI. So I'm gonna just go ahead and import certain set of information for now that can be used later on. So let's just go ahead and import an Excel file. I think I should be having an Excel data store. Yes, there's a data set with me here. Superstore is the name of the data set. And once I click on it, it should be able to import that data for me and show me how to actually go ahead and put this data in. So you see, the navigator understood that these are the different data sources that are there in the sheet that I just imported. I can just click on these things telling that, okay, import data from all these 3 files. I'm going to say load. You can transform the data if you want, but you can do that later as well. We are not going to do that because this is a fairly edited sheet that we have with us. And just like that, guys, our data would be imported. You see, there's orders, there's people, and there's returns. So it would be importing data from all these 3 aspects or all these 3 features that we have on our plate. Has it imported? Yes, the data has been imported. You see it on the right hand side. And you get all the categories of data that has been imported. Now, in case of Tableau 2, you have a very similar interface. The fact that we are talking about different data visualization tools, let us go ahead and look for Tableau as well. So I'll show you their interface as well. How does Tableau works? Okay. So meanwhile it opens, let's continue talking about it. So these are the different sources through which you can import data. You see the summation sign here. The summation sign indicates it's a function that you are using here to calculate these values, or a measure rather. Apart from that, these are your data that is more dimensional in nature. And if you come down here, this is more quantitative or measure kind of a data when you talk about profit, be it your discount, right? Your quantity, your sales. So this is more of a quantitative data. Here you see your different visualizations that you can use, something that we'll discuss as we get into the details of things, right? So you can also import your data, right, from different sources. If I click on get data, you'll see that there's so many data sources here. I mentioned that there would be very few data sources to which Power BI cannot connect to, and I'm very sure about it. You see, you can connect to all these data sources that are there with you, and these are plenty of data sources. I'm sure there would be very few organizations that use anything apart from these data sources. So you can go ahead and choose your data from all these data sources. You can basically go ahead and work around with other sources as well, right? If you come here, you see you have options of data modeling. So basically you can go ahead and do quite a few other things here, right? If you need a new measure, you can do that. So when you click on new measure, basically you're talking about running your DAX queries, something that we'll see as we move further. Okay. Apart from that, if you click on view, you can basically add filters, bookmarks, and also analyze some of the performances that is there. So the options when you talk about Power BI is plenty. If you just want to go ahead and take a look at your data in plain hindsight, click here. So this is where you'll be creating all your visualizations. This is where you'll see all your data. You can again go ahead and arrange your data in different ways, different forms, different formats. So you have the basically support to take care of all these things here. Say, why do I not see my data here? Come here, go to modeling, and is it because we've opened a particular pane here? No need to worry about it. As we go ahead, you see there's a lot of data here. It's just not visible. So I'm gonna say sort it in descending order, and then we'll see, yeah, there you go, everything is here. So it was hidden for some reason. So when I did go ahead and change this, you can add filters here, right? Whether you want to sort your data in ascending order, descending order, do you want to sort it, do you want to clear certain set of information or run certain functions. So when you do go ahead and run DAX queries on it, you can do quite a few things with it. But that is a discussion for the later half. For now, let's just go ahead and understand how the interface looks like, right? This is where you can actually go ahead and create relationships. Now we have 3 tables. You can create a relationship between them. If they are not related, you can relate them in a way that you feel would make it easier for you to process your data. At the bottom here, you have different panes. If I click here, you'll see there's a page thing here. So you can add multiple pages where you can create different visualizations. Now let's go back to the the Tableau thing. This is how the Tableau interface looks like. You can connect to different data sources here. Okay. And once you do that, and if you come down here and you click on sample data superstore, which is a data set that Tableau supports, or it is an inbuilt data set, you would see Tableau's interface. Now in case of Tableau 2, you see there are and once you import the data, you see all these here. In case of Power BI, we had it on the right hand side, and this is where you'll have all the visuals like Power BI, you see. So again, we'll understand how Tableau interface also works. In case of Tableau, if you want to create dashboards and reports, you have the option for it, the story option, dashboard option, and report option here and here. In case of Power BI, that is little different. So this is about the different interfaces for both Tableau and Power BI. That's it for the interface part. Let us now go ahead and try and understand what Power BI DAX is. So when we talk about Power BI DAX stands for Data Analysis Expressions, which again is nothing but a collection of functions, operators, and constants. It is used in formulae and basically it returns one or more variables. It is a native formula and a query language by Microsoft. Now this is what the definition has to say. Let me, however, simplify the whole data here, the whole definition for you. In simple words, DAX or data analysis queries are nothing but these are a process where you can create functions, right? Or basically you can create sub functions using which you can generate certain values. Say for example, you are talking about certain data set where you have maybe categories with you. Now you want to count the number of categories that are there. So you can create a separate function called as count, and you can add that as a measure in your table values, so that next time when you look for the count, you have that as a column name with you. Now, why do you need this to start with? Even when you have all this data filtering and all the processing with you, if you have something like DAX, you can always on the fly add custom functions, custom measures to your data. As we get into the demo part, we would understand how to go ahead and set this in process. But before that, let's quickly understand some of the pointers that are here. To start with, DAX is a functional query language. So you can basically create certain functions and basically bring out certain functions that you want to generate results. It deals with relational data. Yes, obviously, if you talk about something like Power BI, we are mostly concerned with relational data, not mostly, always concerned with relational data, and it helps you perform aggregations. This is something we'll see as we get into the demo part. Next, let us go ahead and understand what are the components of Power BI DAX. So when you talk about DAX in general, DAX has 3 components. One is the syntax, the other one is the function, and the third one is the context. Now, when you talk about a function is nothing but a formula, something like sum, something like count, right? So that is a function. Syntax, what is a syntax? Syntax is nothing but grammar to implement something, right? When you talk about syntax for English language, grammar for English language, it is nothing but how you form a sentence, right? In mathematics, syntax can be creating mathematical functions, mathematical formulae that would give you result. Just like in programming, we have syntax that is used to basically convey a particular action, right? Similarly, when you talk about Power BI, we are talking about mathematical calculations here, aggregations here. And for that, you'll be needing some grammar, some syntax. And this is what the component syntax of Power BI gives you. Next, you have context. Now, context is the ability to create functions, right? So if you are dealing with basically adding or working with row values, this context would be called as row context. Similarly, if you are adding a filter either to a column or even to a row or to the entire data, then it is called as a filter context. So basically you have two contexts here, that is your filter context and your row context. Similarly, you have functions and syntax in Power BI DAX. Let us now go ahead and move into the Power BI console and try and understand how DAX functions can be created or how do they work. We would be going ahead and creating quite a lot of visualizations, but that is for the later bit. For now, let's try and understand how Power BI DAX works and what all can you do with Power BI DAX. So to do that, let's assume that we have quite a few measures here, quite a few stuff that we can work around with. So here's a column name called as subcategory. Let's try and write a DAX query for it or a function for it that gives you the count of the subcategories that we have with us. So if we come here in the data source, you'd get to know that we would be having this category of sub data somewhere, right? This is what we have here. Let's assume that I want to count all these categories. Now, fortunately for us, we can keep a track of it. If I scroll down, you would see that there are 9994 rows. So our count should be around that, right? If we create a count function for or a count measure for this particular subcategory. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to test if the hypothesis is correct. If I create a count function that basically gives me a count of the total rows under a subcategory, can we do that? Yes. How do we do that? I come here, I right click and I say new measure. And what is the measure that I'm going to create? Let's call it subcategory count. Okay, so as you can see, Power BI is smart enough to give you suggestions where it would suggest certain things to you, basically operate with, so that your functioning becomes easier. Let's see how does that work. If I come here, okay, and now I want to count it, right? So all I have to do is I have to just type COU maybe, right? So it will suggest the possible functions. If I had to do sum, I would have typed sum, right? It would have given me that. So again, it is suggestive, this interface, where if you put in certain values, it would suggest a solution for it. Now let us go ahead and look for count and select count. There you go. And it would open the syntax for you. What it suggests is enter the column name for which you want to count, right? Let's say subcategory. You see, so the orders table has subcategory. I'm just going to go ahead and enter it here and I'm going to hit the enter button. And once I do that, the category gets added here. You see, so if I come here and drop it here, you see it creates a bar graph for me. Okay, we'll understand all these graphs and stuff, but I want to check whether the count is correct or not. So there's a visualization Power BI called as card visualization. You see, it gives you this number, suggesting that there are these many subscribers, and that is the not subscribers, subcategory count. And that is the count that we saw here at the bottom, isn't it? 9994. So it is giving us right and exact values that meet our requirements, isn't it? I'm going to remove this for now, and I'm going to remove this from here as well. So the subcategory count thing, I want to delete it. I do not want it here. I'm going to just delete it. Yes. So this is how your DAX basically works like. Okay. I hope that is clear to you people.
And with that, we have reached the end of our journey through what is Power BI. Congratulations on mastering one of the most powerful tools in data analytics. Throughout this course, you have not only learned the ins and outs of Power BI, but also discovered how to harness its capabilities to transform raw data into actionable insights. From understanding the basics of business intelligence to mastering the intricacies of Power BI components and DAX, you have gained a solid foundation in data analysis. Now equipped with the skills to create compelling reports and dashboards, you are ready to tackle any data challenge that comes your way. Remember, The power of Power BI lies not just in its features, but in how you use them to uncover valuable insights and drive informed decisions. For more tips, tricks, and informative content on data analytics, be sure to subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for future updates. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to seeing you in our next course.